Welcome to Just Break Up, the podcast about love, heartbreak, and all the relationship advice you don't want to hear. My name is Sierra DeMulder.
And I'm Sam Blackwell, and today we're going to answer a letter from somebody who feels dumb for putting up with a terrible partner for so long. But before we begin, we just want to give you our Surgeon General.
Every single listener we've ever had. Yes, sure. Thank you for writing.
100%. Before we begin, we just want to give you our Surgeon General's warning, which is that Sierra and I are not licensed mental health practitioners.
Correct. We are not professionals. We are not trained in any of this. In fact, I could have written this letter to myself.
That's
so please
true.
Take our advice.
So could I.
Please take Sam and I's advice as you see fit, because we are not professionals. We're just here to offer our humble musings to hopefully shed some understanding and maybe some laughs about the incredibly rewarding but mostly confusing experience that is love. All right, let me dive into today's letter. It is from Silly Goose, whose pronouns are she, her, who is writing to us from Stupidville. Which is just so real. You know, I'm laughing because
Absolutely.
It's like we only use words like that when we're mad at ourselves, you know?
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Yes.
So Silly Goose writes, "Hello, I love your podcast and have listened to it throughout my 6-year relationship, which recently ended. We met my freshman year of college and officially got together around Thanksgiving of that year. I was super in love and consider it my first real relationship. That January, we got into our first fight. He ghosted and ignored me until I caught him on a date with his ex. We had a conversation and decided to stay together. However, throughout our entire relationship, he continued to be in contact with various exes from his romantic life before me. He knew this bothered me and said he would only stop if I asked him to, but I did not feel comfortable asking him to cut people out of his life. During COVID, he broke up with me because he did not want to move in together. We returned to our respective homes on opposite sides of the country. Once we were allowed to go back on campus, we got back together and I would commute 4 hours every weekend to see him. I asked him to move in with me after graduation, and we lived together for 2 years. I continued to find out he was hiding exes he was texting from me, including lying about them just being friends. The moment I knew it was over was when we were at my friend's wedding, and he was stonewalling me because he was upset by how nice it was. He would make me feel like a bad person because of my corporate job. He worked at a nonprofit. He would lie and tell me he didn't see a future with me, and I stayed for 6 years. Coming out of this, I feel like the dumbest girl on earth. Now that I have some distance, I see how awful he treated me and how I deserve so much better. However, I feel like I will never be able to put that amount of effort into a relationship again. I feel emotionally exhausted and drained. Why do we ignore red flags and bad behavior in long-term relationships? Is there hope to love again without doubting? I fear I will never get over my trust issues."
All right, Silly Goose. Thank you so much for writing to us. I'm sorry about your breakup, and I'm sorry that you now have this kind of perspective where you're looking back and seeing all of the things that you put up with in your relationship, and sort of saying like, why did I do this? Why did I agree to this for so long? Why did I ignore all these red flags? And how am I ever going to be able to be in relationship with somebody having gone through this terrible experience and having my trust in myself and in your partner so undermined? And I think that a lot of people feel that in a lot of different ways. I think Sierra and I were joking at the beginning of this episode that we both could have written this letter at one point in our lives, probably multiple points in our lives, because, you know, Sierra and I have this relationship advice podcast where we just get to sit here and mouth off about what we think other people should be doing or what they should be paying attention to. And it's really easy when you're on the outside of things to say, that person should know better, or that's a red flag. You shouldn't be putting up with that. It's so much harder when real, genuine care and feelings and compassion absolutely get involved in it, right? Like, sometimes I think we all sit here and think we should be 100% rational all the time. We should have perfect clarity. We should have perspective on single thing that's happening in our lives. And I don't think that we should, because I think that that's not even a human experience then, if we're just constantly perfectly able to make decisions, right? And instead, what happens is that we get caught up in how much we love this person or how good they make us feel when they actually look at us and tell us that we look good, or all of the different ways in which we have built some sort of future together or promises that things will get better. And those things are so natural and understandable and reasonable. And you got caught up in that, as so many of us do, when we're deeply in love and we see the person in front of us and we want to see their fullest, most beautiful potential. And so we ignore the things that are happening that are reminding us that they're not just potential. They're actually people who are treating us in a particular way. And so I know you feel stupid, but I want to just say, like, you're not stupid. Absolutely not. You're human. You're a beautiful, loving, compassionate, caring person. And you did what all beautiful, loving, compassionate, caring people do, which is love somebody even though they maybe didn't deserve it as much as they should have, or love somebody even though they were treating us poorly. And that's not a stupid thing to do. That's just a deeply understandable and human thing to do. So Sierra and I are going to offer you some advice about how to move forward with this, and some advice about how to take what you've experienced and learned from this relationship into your future and learn how to trust again. But before we do that, we are going to take a quick break.
All right, my darling, welcome back. And thank you so much again for trusting us with this letter. I'm sorry your heart is feeling so spent right now. That's what it feels like, right? You put so much time and energy, and now you're exhausted and drained, and you're questioning why you put up with things. I think Sam did a beautiful job of talking about like why we love in the face of things like bad behavior or red flags. You know, we're all seeking connection. We're seeking love, and we want to be interconnected. Our instinct, unfortunately, is not to turn away at bad love, right? And I think ultimately that's actually like a beautiful human instinct, but I know it can lead us astray so many times. I have two big things that I want to talk about, and they kind of go hand in hand. I'm looking to the future. I'm looking to the day that like you meet somebody that makes you feel excited again or interested or whatever, because I love your question about like, you said, I feel like I'll never be able to put that amount of effort into a relationship again. And I want to start by reminding you and everybody out there that like trusting trustworthy people is so easy. And being in a healthy and reciprocal relationship feels easy. Of course, it's work, right? Of course, every interpersonal relationship requires effort, but a relationship that is wanted and adored and fostered and nurtured by both parties, it doesn't feel like so much work. There are people out there that won't make you feel stupid, that won't make you feel embarrassed for how much you want something or for what you put up with or whatever. And I have a lot of hope right now in this body, in this moment, for you and your ability and capacity to love again. Even though right now your body's feeling bruised and your heart's feeling tired and you're just thinking, man, I don't have the capacity. And that's very true in this moment, right? You need to rest. You need to reflect. You need to learn how to trust yourself again, right? You need to forgive yourself and start to nurture the parts of you that feel wounded by this. But one day you will be able to love and trust again because you're going to meet somebody who reciprocates the effort that you put so caringly and lovingly into your relationship. And I know that's not like a perfect fix, right? Because you also ask, like, I'm afraid I will never get over my trust issues. Is there hope to love again without doubting? And I do want to say, because this is a learning moment, that in addition to the fact that there are going to be people out there who won't make you work so hard to love them, in the future, you are going to meet a good, true love that is going to be so secure and so trustworthy and so reciprocating and loving. And they're gonna be friends with some of their exes because they are that good of a person, right? because they have the capacity to have friendships outside of the romantic history, or because time has passed and things have changed so much. That is just a reality. And I don't say that to make you feel self-conscious. And I definitely don't say that to justify your ex's behavior, because it sounds like he was stepping way outside of the bounds of your relationship, way farther than just, talking to people that made you feel uncomfortable, right? But I do, in future relationships, I do want you to be able to feel triggered and rest in the confidence and the security that you're building in that relationship. Like, I have talked on this show a ton about how I had to learn how to approach my anxious attachment style, approach my insecurities, and say, okay, just because my nervous system is triggered, just because I'm made uncomfortable by this, is there truly a threat here? Is something risking my happiness right now? And let me tell you, in a relationship with a loving, secure, trustworthy, committed partner, there wasn't anything threatening me there. I was just afraid. So then it comes down to me and you. It's not us getting over our trust issues. It's learning how to feel uncomfortable and find security through those triggers, right? And it's also about, validating the fact that when you catch your boyfriend on a date with somebody else, that should be means for leaving him, right? Don't get me wrong. I've stayed with, I joked at the beginning of this episode that I could have written this letter. This motherfucker told me that he thought he had cancer. And then I found out that was a lie. And then I went on to date him, and then he cheated on me. And then I stayed with him. So it's like, man, how many fucking red flags did I have, flagrantly waving in my face before
you were surrounded
to
by
be
them.
dumped by that person. So talk about thinking you're stupid narrative. Anyway, it's like 3 prongs are happening right now to me, I guess. One, you're going to meet somebody in the future who's going to feel a lot easier than this. Love shouldn't feel so laborious and strained, right? Number 2, in the future, you're going to be able to say no to the love that takes too much work and is too challenging and is asking too much of you. Like, it's reasonable to be like, hey, this person we used to date and now we're friends. I need you to be cool with that. That's reasonable to me. But hey, I'm texting inappropriately with my ex. I'm going on dates with them. I'm stepping outside of the bounds of my relationship. That's not appropriate to me. And then that's not a red flag. That is a line cross. That's a deal breaker. And then in the future, you have to learn where the bounds of your comfort are and how to ask your partner for that. It's okay that you're friends with your exes. I'm not comfortable if you hang out alone with them, or I don't know what the situation would be.
For sure. For sure. Absolutely. And I think that's a good point to take, is that, you've learned something about yourself from this situation, as all relationships teach us things about ourselves, which is that, one of the things is that, like, maybe you are too willing to kind of put up with stuff because you want to be in a relationship more than you want to actually sort of like look at the things that are happening. So this is an opportunity for you to say, okay, so how can I make sure that I am preserving what I know to be true about what I'm worth and what I deserve in relationships? And when they, cheat on me, or when they're texting people inappropriate or whatever, then we need to have a conversation. Or if not a conversation, then we need to part ways, right? Like, I think especially when we're young, so many of us get into these types of situations because we don't know where the edges and boundaries are for us. And we don't know how to navigate the really discordant idea of having deep feelings for somebody, and also recognizing that those deep feelings for that person aren't helpful for us because they're hurting us. And so, like, I think a lot of us, especially when we were young, stay in relationships that are unhealthy for us, because it's like, well, I'm having all these feelings for this person. I feel this like deep abiding love for them. And how could I be feeling that if this person was doing me harm, or if it weren't worth it for us to keep going on this? And we often have to learn that lesson in really difficult ways. And it sounds like that's something that happened for you in this moment. And I don't want to say it's a good thing, because it's definitely not a good thing to be hurt in this way, or to have your boundaries be trampled on in this way. It is a moment of clarity, right? It's a moment of experiencing something that tells us that we might need to change our behavior, or to do some love and kindness to ourselves, and to know what we're worth, so that we don't get into a situation like this again. Or I think we don't get into a situation like this again and then stay in it, right? No amount of preparation, or no amount of paying attention, or no amount of vigilance is going to prevent us from being in situations with somebody who might be untrustworthy, or somebody who might take advantage of us. But the idea is that as we begin to instill ourselves with more trust and a better understanding of what we're worth and what we deserve, we can get out of those situations faster, right? We can recognize when things aren't as healthy as they should be, or when we're being taken advantage of. And I think that's really, like, in the question that you're asking, right? Is there hope to love again without doubting? No. I think that all love probably has doubts in it. But the way that our partners respond to our doubts, the way that partners respond to our anxiety or our concerns, is an indication of how much they can be in good relationship with us, right? It's like Sierra said, the idea of like, how different is it to be in a relationship with somebody who, instead of saying, oh, I'm just talking to that person, that doesn't mean anything, and I can't believe that you would make it into something that it's not, instead say something like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry you're feeling that way. Do you want to talk about it? What can we do to help support you? What do you need in this moment to help move? And how can I make sure that you know that I love you and trust you and want to be with you? Like, yeah, there's doubt. Yes, there's questions. Yes, there's stickiness and crunchiness, but there is love that doesn't make you work so hard, because your partner is willing to be there through the crunchiness, through the stickiness, through the doubt, to help you feel safe and supported and secure in your relationship. And that love is out there for you. I know that sounds like silly and hippy dippy, right? But that love is out there for you. I know that it is, and you'll know when it's happening, because you'll feel the level of support that you didn't get from your partner, right? You're going to feel that you can have doubts, and those doubts are okay, because that means that you are supported in the relationship.
Yeah, and I also want to point out, the thesis that we founded this podcast on is the idea that we learn how to love by loving people. We learn how to be in relationships by being in relationships with other people. We learn how to do all of this by being in active community with one another. And this is your first relationship. If we were to base Sam and I's intelligence based off of our first relationship decision making, this would not look very pretty. I say this just to extend compassion to yourself. Like, be gentle with yourself. None of us were born with a manual that explained how to be in relationship with one another. In fact, so many of us were given really poor examples to follow, whether it was from popular culture, rom-coms, our parents, our relationships in high school, things we saw in the media. Like, none of us were told how to do this, and we're just figuring it out as we go along. And we are lucky if we have lived experiences that we can learn and grow from, even through the pain, even through the discomfort and the shame of that pain. Now you know better. Now you know you're not going to let somebody treat you that way. Now you know where you're going to look for other people. And guess what? I know it's out there for you. I know it is.
I think that this is just a really shitty situation that you're in, in the ways that so many of us find ourselves in shitty situations. And part of the healing and growth process is recognizing that like this is really hard and that you deserve to be taken care of and that you didn't necessarily even do anything wrong and didn't deserve to feel this way. And yet that's what life has given us. And so as you're thinking about what comes next for you, I think it's important to remember that there are perhaps short-term and long-term things that you might want to be thinking about, right? Long-term being, what does it look like for me to date again? What does it look like for me to trust after dating someone who's so untrustworthy? But there's also attention that's needed in the short term as well. So in the moments after this breakup, in these moments of recognizing how badly you were treated and how you didn't deserve it, what do you need? What needs tending to in there? How can you take care of yourself and provide yourself with kindness and compassion and support? Because the present you also needs to have some attention. And I really hope that as you're navigating through what this breakup is, that you're giving yourself all of the compassion and understanding that you deserve, because relationships are tricky, they're complicated, and none of us get through them with perfect ideas of how we should behave or doing it in a way that doesn't cause ourselves harm, right? And so you deserve compassion and love and support in this moment. And I hope that you're finding it with yourself, and I hope that you're finding it with your community. And just know that as time goes on, some of those bigger questions about trust and dating and getting back out there will become a little easier, because you'll have the support and the kindness to get you to those long-term considerations.
Exactly. All right, my darling, we love you so much, and we're so grateful that you trusted us with this letter. We hope this helps.
Thank you so much for writing. We love you.
All right, it's Friday, which brings us to the blind date segment of this episode. Every show, we like to shout out something that we love, that we want to set you up with. And this week, we're going to send you home with
a movie. This is a Peter blind date. The movie is called I Saw the TV Glow. I think that I have talked about it a little bit before on the podcast. But Peter saw this movie by himself and said it was one of the best movies he's ever seen, particularly in the way that it kind of takes and thinks about the ways that we find identity and community in fandom, especially for folks who identify as queer and trans. It's about a pair of young people, teenagers who are obsessed with a show that's kind of like Buffy the Vampire Slayer meets like Are You Afraid of the Dark? And that sort of like entry point into this fandom offers them some really introspective considerations about who they are, where they are, why they're doing the things that they do, and really kind of looks at all of the ways in which our connections to media and the things that we love can sometimes help us understand ourselves better and can sometimes hinder us in that understanding. He said he cried like the whole movie and just like felt very seen and affirmed and heard by this movie. So if you are into kind of creepy, spooky movies and are interested in stories that are also told by queer and trans people, the director is a trans, feminine, non-binary person. You should definitely check it out. Again, it's called I Saw the TV Glow, and it is available for rental on all of the different platforms. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. If you would like more content from us, or if you would like access to our monthly office hours, you can support us on Patreon. If you support us on Patreon for as little as $5 a month, you'll get an additional bonus weekly episode, as well as access to all of those office hours. That's patreon.com/justbreakuppod.
You can slide into our DMs, send us your favorite relationship memes, but most importantly, you can submit your questions about all matters of the heart at justbreakuppod.com, which is also where you can find our merchandise.
Please remember to like, follow, subscribe, give us a 5-star rating and review. This literally keeps our mics on and helps us reach more brokenhearted souls who need two random strangers giving them relationship advice.
Just Break Up is a production of Duvid Media, original music, recording, editing, producing all magical things by our good friend Spencer Worth Davis. Make sure to check out his podcast and his music. And remember, we're all doing all of this for the first time. We weren't told what to do. We weren't given a script. None of us got a manual on how to love each other well. We can just learn and make mistakes and hopefully learn from those mistakes. We're all on a journey together. You are exactly where you are supposed to be. And if all else fails,
just break up.